Hey everybody, it's Joe Trippi, and welcome back to That Trippi Show with my co-host Alex Sashlow.
Are you Anonymous Wombat in the rundown right now? Because there's an Anonymous Wombat in the rundown. Is that you? Or are we being hacked?
It's probably we're being hacked. This week, tons of updates from the campaign trail. By the way, on the Anonymous Wombat thing, Alex has started to complain to me that he's no longer anonymous now that I keep saying that he's my co-host and that people know.
It's been 4 years, man. And I haven't just started.
And no, but people have just started like messaging him and texting him with questions and ideas directly. And so I guess the notoriety is adding up. Anyway, this week, tons of updates from the campaign trail. What's the latest from Maine? Republicans are starting to really worry about Iowa and Ohio. They should have been worried about that for a while, but where else? We're on track for record turnover in Congress. The question here that Alex asked, is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Short answer, yes. We'll talk about a couple of big Supreme Court decisions if we get to those questions, and answer more of your questions if we get to them. Alex, where do you want to get started?
Man, we got to go to Maine. It's interesting. We took, obviously, Ira's episode last week was awesome and I think necessary and one of my favorite ones we've done. But so much has happened in the last 2 weeks in campaign world that I feel like we've almost got to cram like 2 episodes into one today. We'll do our best and try to get folks out of here on time. But let's go to Maine. Graham Platner just stepped down. Obviously, some new allegations, pretty bad ones, came out against him in the last couple days. It was somewhat unclear whether he would or wouldn't, but he ultimately did. He did attempt to burn the house down on his way out with an absolutely scathing video that came out, which, again, not super surprising. Joe, first of all, before we get into like what's going to happen, how did he make it this far? And what I mean by that is he obviously had some absolutely glaring baggage. Like this guy is a walking oppo book. How did he get through this far?
It's really simple. He had an incredible message that was working, and a lot of people out there who support him, a lot of elected officials, party, whether it was Sanders or Elizabeth Warren, Ro Khanna, et cetera. And by the way, a lot of people in the middle, in the center, independents, love that message. And so when you ever have somebody with an incredible message and you fall in love with the message, it obviously people attack the messenger when that happens, and you kind of like take those attacks with a grain of salt until you come to the conclusion, great message, wrong messenger. And Platner's proving that. He's proved it in the way he handled this. He's proved it in the way he went out with his 11-minute video.
If I ever had, again, it's different now, but as a consultant who sometimes gets candidates to listen to me, if anyone ever says, hey, I want to record an 11-minute video, generally speaking, you shouldn't record an 11-minute video.
But I mean, like a great example of this might be John Edwards, who I worked for back in the day, his Two Americas message, that there were two Americas, one where that was succeeding and another one that was being left behind. The guys say, come from a small town and literally got himself on the, he was the VP nominee, he ran for president. I had no idea about, the whole thing where he's talking about, where he's like paying people to say they were the ones having his child, all that stuff. And when, and it was instantaneous when everybody says, decides wrong messenger. It's just the way, it's not that people who supported John Edwards, including John Kerry when he picked him, and none of the, who knows if any of this was going on back then. That's not my point. But my point is you can have a hell of a message, get lots of people to support you, and then all of a sudden, it turns out everybody decides at once wrong messenger. But some people got there soon, almost immediately, just with tattoos and stuff. But that's really all that's happened here. Instead, it's like, oh my God, how could the left? It's also the media of our times to turn this into somehow it's because the left went too far with this guy or whatever. His message was appealing to a hell of a lot of people, working people in Maine, period. And it was so powerful that people fell in love with the message and weren't really taking a strong look at the messenger until it became impossible to look away. And they realized, great message, wrong messenger. And that's all that happened.
So he's stepping down. This is a question from Ellen. With Graham Platner stepping down, and he's already won the Democratic Party, how much damage has been done to Democrats' chances in Maine? Can Maine Democrats still turn this back into a race about Susan Collins?
Absolutely. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Look, I've done a ton of literally the state party conventions that they have. And this one will be a little bit more, quick because of the time gap the legal gap that they have to choose somebody. But there are a lot of people, who there's a pretty strong bench in Maine. I'm not sure who's going to, come out of it, but I do understand how the state party committee works. I've actually run a lot of floor operations for actual Maine conventions or state party conventions there, going back, over several decades. I've done it, and I think that convention or the state party executive committee, however it pulls off the vote, they've got some good candidates to choose from. I, for one, was one of the early people who thought maybe we should try to draft Heather Cox Richardson. I think she'd crush Collins. Just crush her. She'd be able to raise all kinds of money from the people that read her newsletter every day. And she's a great historian,
politician.
But she's not a politician. And, as one of my friends said, better to make history than study history. She could do both. But anyway, it's clear she's made some pretty Sherman-esque, statements. She doesn't want it, will not run. There are plenty of other people. I'm not sure how this will play out, but I'm not worried at all about the fact of the matter is Collins. The Collins campaign and the Republican Party is sitting there today knowing that their dream of running
against a really wounded candidate. I mean, he
really
was tanking.
Guy.
Yeah.
They wanted that. That's what they wanted. They knew his message was powerful. But obviously, they were ready to pounce and make sure people knew he was the wrong messenger if Democrats didn't step up or if he didn't step in it too soon for them, and he did. So look, that means they're going to be running again. The one thing in all the polling, a generic Democrat beats her every time in all the polling. Yep. So they're going to be. It's going to be a lot better than a generic Democrat. They're really good people. They're, some of whom ran for governor. and have, basically the one thing I think that gives the advantage of those who ran for governor, even though they, took second or third, uh, uh, is that they just got through a very tough primary for governor. Yes, they lost, but they've been vetted. Anything that was in there, that was going to come out or could come out, or a lot of it anyway, would have happened in that fight they just had for governor. And they all did pretty well. I mean, it was a jump ball kind of race for governor. If you go back and look at the results. And so, look, I think one of those candidates, or we'll see. There are other former members of Congress, or even the first district congresswoman. I don't think she'll get in either, but we'll see. I think we've got a really good bench.
And this is another question from a Mainer, and I had a flavor of it too. If we're talking about who is replacing him, does this person need to have that same kind of anti-establishment populist energy, or is this like Democrats tend to, when they have to pivot or like this, they tend to go to a safe choice pretty fast? So do you take the safe choice, or do you find another firebrand?
Well, look, first of all, I think like Janet Mills, the governor who Platner defeated, for when she got out of the race, I think, one, I don't think she's interested, but two, I don't know. I don't know if that's the same what you're talking about. But my point is, I think putting in the person that he opposed, that was opposing him in the primary, and then she withdrew from the race, would be a mistake. I mean, just because of what that, it's like, hey, great, you're gone. We'll go with the former, the governor. I think it's much more one. I think, my initial reaction is that I think a woman would be a far better nominee to face Susan Collins for lots of reasons. I think you've got to pull women away from her, and also I think the Platner mess here, with the rape charges, et cetera. I think, I just think a woman would have a better, of equal, forget about ideology or, uh, what order they came in the gubernatorial primary. I just think, if I were advising the party, I'd look to see like a Heather Cox Richardson would have been perfect. The first district Congresswoman Pengree would be good, but I don't think she's ready, if we take the House, to be chair of her committee. So I don't think she's going to do it. I mean, I don't even think she's thinking about it. But there are others. We'll see what happens.
So, okay, let's move to another M state, my home state.
Shayna Bellows, the Secretary of State, who ran for governor and lost. She ran against Collins in the past, and Collins defeated her. But I don't know. I think she's probably entering the race. But that's what I'm saying. There are plenty of people, including Troy Jackson and the Speaker of the House in Maine.
Yeah. No, they got
really
people, and it'll be a caucus.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Michigan. Enough in Maine. Mallory McMorrow dropped out of the Senate primary there, leaving just Haley Stevens and Abdul. That's a really interesting one now, because kind of the calm voice of the middle is out now. And you've got just once again the question of insurgent Bernie bro type with Abdul El Sayed, and Haley Stevens, who's desperately trying to now run to the middle and just be kind of the most electable one. Joe, any thoughts on that? Because I feel like that's kind of the remaining fight, is that it's not so much those two people, but do Democrats go safe? Do they continue this anti-insurgent surge? Like, it's happening in Michigan too. I'm curious your read on that.
It's why we have primaries. It's why we have elections. I think anybody who tells you how this is going to go is, just like, I don't. I have no idea. And I'm usually somebody who will say, oh, this means that. No, I think it's clear that that Mallory McMorrow wasn't going to be a player. I mean, in terms of having a shot, it even coming in second wasn't going to happen. I mean, I don't really know. I think obviously some of those people will be voting for Haley Stevens, but I don't know if it's enough, and frankly, just the way this all plays out, whether it kind of uh, looks like everybody's trying to consolidate around Haley Stevens to stop Abdul El Sayed, so. Um, and that might work to get his people out. Who knows? I think it's going to be the campaign to watch the rest of the way for sure.
So, okay, there's Michigan. Now, zoom out. We're still talking Senate. So, I know you mentioned at the top, Republicans are dropping close to $30 million into Ohio and another 10 or 11 into Iowa right now, and where Hinson is obviously struggling dramatically. Cook has Alaska as a toss-up. North Carolina is a likely flip. Are you still feeling good about the Senate? And if so,
Yeah.
where?
Hell yeah. We're
Even
gonna,
with this Maine stuff, I actually feel a lot better now that Platner's out.
I think, no, look, I think we're going to win Maine. I don't look, Maine, Susan Collins, with all his baggage, he was still either in a dead heat or ahead of her. Okay. I mean, I know they were going to dump a ton on all this other stuff that we probably still don't know about, which gave them, which is why they thought they were going to take that seat. Look, they're not going to take Ohio or Iowa. There's a reason they're spending all that money there. And look, you got Texas. That's going to, Tellerico is sucking money that they're going to have to, I mean, they are having to spend millions for Paxson just to keep him in a dead heat with Tellerico. They're going to have to keep doing that even if they defeat Tellerico there, which is questionable, but it's a toss up. But that money that they have to spend there is now hurting them because they've got all these other races where it's not that I assume, I'll bet you they didn't think they were going to have a race in Iowa with Hinson. And now they do. And not only do they, she's behind. So you've got, and Sherrod's ahead in Ohio too, if I'm remembering my last look at the
seven-ish.
polls. Yeah. So they've got to spend their millions there. I don't think that's going to happen. North Carolina, forget about it. That's not going to happen. So now you're looking at, okay, if you take North Carolina, Ohio, and Iowa, Alaska is looking damn good. Maine, by the way, and that's what I'm saying. I think Maine wasn't in play if Platner stays in. It's in play big time now, because any one of the 4 or 5 Democrats that we just rattled off that are out there is going to be better than the generic Democrat that defeats her every time we do a poll with a generic Democrat in it. She's losing. So you got that. You've got Alaska. You've got, and Texas is still there. No, I still believe that this isn't going to be 3 or 4 seats. We are going to win the Senate. Now Michigan, that's why watch that primary there. That's going to have big implications one way or the other. But I'm still not even sure that if your candidate doesn't win in Michigan means that, we've got a problem in Michigan. We'll see. It's way too early to tell, but it's way too early to tell how, how the change there is going to impact, how the final 2 here are going to, what that play is going to look like.
So now we got to talk about what the Supreme Court's doing, because we're assuming a fair fight. 2 big decisions.
No, we've never assumed a fair fight. We've never.
No, that's fair.
assumed.
No, we haven't. But
No.
the questions we've gotten, in this new reality, 2 big decisions I wanted to get, and this is from Aiden in Missouri. Are we concerned about the decisions on mail-in voting and campaign money? And for background for our listeners, the Supreme Court ruled, I think it was 5-4, that as long as your mail-in ballot is postmarked by Election Day, it can be counted as long as it's received within 5 days. But the bigger one, Joe, is that political parties can now spend unlimited money to coordinate with candidates. Are either of those going to matter that much this year?
Well, one, on the mail-in stuff, I don't think the court upholding it fine. But that's not the games they're playing with how they're going to postmark ballots as they come in, or whether the post office is going to process ballots that aren't on their federal list. Those are all just Postal Service administrative changes, and the court won't be able to rule on those until after the Postal Service creates harm. In other words, when his ballot isn't counted because he's not on the federal list, then Alex has standing and can sue to have his ballot counted, and then we'll go through the court. So no, there are things that they are doing that are underneath the radar. We've talked about some of them on the show, but so good thing that the Supreme Court ruled this way. Don't take your eye off. Don't go to sleep on mail-in ballots and how the administration, the Postal Service, and is going to mess with them every step of the way, and we have to be vigilant. On the other one, the money, I think it's going to be interesting because I'm not sure. I mean, we're seeing in a lot of these states, like we just talked about, Ohio and Iowa, all the money they're pumping in. I'm not sure that that's going to undo the damage. In fact, I'm pretty sure it won't. That Trump has done that's been done to his brand and the MAGA brand, and how toxic it is with independents, with the double haters, with all the other groups that we've talked about, with Latinos in Texas. I'm not sure there's any amount of money you can spend to convince a Latino in Texas that the mass deportations, the prices at the gas pump, all of it. I just don't see how. Oh yeah, we'll spend $20 million more in Texas just aimed at Latinos. Good luck with that. The fact that they redrew those districts where we talk about district, I think it's 35, which is 57% Hispanic. It's one of the 5 they redrew because it was based on how Trump did with Latinos in 2024. They wasted a lot of time and money to create that district that is, I'm pretty sure, is going to be a Democratic win, and they may spend millions more trying to win that district, and the change there may actually, Tallarico may make that, because he's going to get out that vote. I don't. I think look, money has a ton of impact. I just not. One, double down. What you give to Tellerico, give to these candidates, give in Ohio to Sherrod Brown, Josh Turek in Iowa, Tallarico in Texas, Vindman in Florida. He's a behind by 4 or 5 points, but he has a real shot. There are lots of races where people should not go to sleep. One of them is one we're involved in with Doug Jones in Alabama for governor. Now, people don't focus on governor's race, but Doug Jones has a shot. And so the more money, by the way, the more money they have to spend in Alabama trying to stop Doug Jones, because you gave Doug Jones $10, is money they can't spend against Tallarico and Sherrod Brown and our other candidates. So we're spreading them thinner and thinner. That's why the Supreme Court, corporations are people. They can spend whatever the hell they want. Now you can coordinate and spend whatever you want. It's there's a lot of work to be done once we win in November to undo all this bullshit, because Congress could codify and change these laws and make them work. Right now, MAGA the Trump and MAGA are going to make sure that doesn't happen. They're going to pull everything they can, every trick, use the law or postal service in any way they can to thwart democracy and the results. We've got two ways: flood the zone, flood it with votes in November, flood it with any $25, $10. That's the only. It's not going to be able to outspend the big billionaire money that's flowing in now and that they've allowed. But it's we the people, and that's all we got now. It's not gonna. The court is not gonna on that front is not gonna help us.
No, it's gone. All right, last thing, Joe, and I'm wanted to get to this. This is a fun listener question, but Sally in New Mexico, we're looking at over 14% of Congress not returning next year. That's 12 senators and 65 representatives at the time of this question being sent in. That number will go higher. This is the highest number since the Obama era or before. Joe, that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Look, Congress is old. I mean, and the Senate's really, really old. And we need fresh thinking, new ideas. Look, what's happened here is massive destruction, mass wiping out of whole departments, making them completely incapable of carrying out their mission. Doge cuts, everything. You know, when we win in November, the first impulse can't be to rebuild the old Department of Education. It's got to, because it's been wrecked and ruined and destroyed pretty much by Trump and his MAGA minions. So no, do we have new approaches, really ideas to reform and revitalize the institutions and reinvent them completely from whole cloth. And that's going to need new people and new ideas, because the people that are in there are so stuck in the old answers that haven't worked for anybody, which is why, by the way, Graham Platner gets some traction, because he speaks that truth and tells people, hey, we've got to do something completely different and fight for this, and then his message. So no, I think that every time we've had a big turnover, it's the life cycle of getting new blood into the House and the Senate. And if there was ever a time in our history where we desperately needed new blood, new ideas, new leadership, it's now. Chuck Schumer should have done what Nancy did and stepped down. I think that's a big part. If Schumer supports you, it's the kiss of death in a Democratic primary. That tells you about how much change people really want, and why a Graham Platner can beat a Janet Mills.
Well, I think that is a very good place to wrap today, Trippi.
Great. Well, thanks, Alex, and thanks everyone for listening to or watching that Trippi Show. Make sure to join us at sez.us. It's a civil social network for real human beings, not bots or algorithms. It's just a place where we can work and spread our message and talk about what we need to do to win in November and to defeat this autocratic grab. This podcast will always be free and is part of Lincoln Square. Same mission there, to get out media and shows like this one to help you understand and answer your questions about what's happening and what we can all do. So check out the latest at lincolnsquare.media. And if you're listening to this episode on YouTube, please like and subscribe to get alerts when we post the next episode. It helps get us attention from other people when you do that and grow the show. And really appreciate you listening and telling your friends to listen. So you can always send us a question to thattrippishow@gmail.com or leave us a question in a review on iTunes. We'll see you all next week.